Welcome to my Filmmaking Masterclass live. This is the first time doing the first Filmmaking Masterclass live, so hope it goes well, guys. Thanks for joining from Facebook as well as YouTube, or if you're watching this recorded, you're going to be in for a good ride. I'm going to go over what this Filmmaking Masterclass is. I'm going to give you some tips. This is interactive. I can see your questions. I'm going to answer your questions. Anything about filmmaking. And if you watch it till the end, there's a little surprise I have for you guys. So, with further ado, let's see if there's any more people joining. And then we'll make a start. Oh, we have 5 people. Great. Guys, so this live stream, we're going to go over a little bit of screenwriting as well as a bit of cinematography. You are free to ask any questions and just go along. Enjoy the learning experience. I'm here to teach you the knowledge that I have gained for the past 5 years of filmmaking. For any of you watching don't know who I am, I'm Blake Ritter. I've been making films for the past 5 years, and I've been making short films, feature films. I write, I direct, sometimes I shoot and edit my films. I just do everything basically, guys. So let's see who's here. Thomas, hi. Ihan, hi. Hello everyone. So I think without further ado, we'll make a start of this masterclass. All right. So, screenwriting. Let's talk about that first. I get a lot of questions on social media when people want to do their first film, and they get stuck on the idea, and they just don't know where to start. And that is the first step of making a film. You've got to have an idea. You don't have an idea, then there is no film. So I want to show you a clip from my masterclass to give you a little bit of learning on how to generate ideas or concept. And then I'll pause if there's some parts I want to talk a bit more, or if you've got any questions, I'll go through that as well. Hey Thomas. Cool. All right, let's play the first clip. So, how do you get your ideas for your films? That's the most questions I've ever get asked, because I've wrote so many films, and sometimes, it's really hard to get ideas. How do I get mine? Basically, from different number of sources, and you can find your own way to do your kind of way of getting ideas. Just sit down and think about what you want to achieve in your film, what kind of message you want to send, and just think hard what that film is going to be. Is it going to be horror? If it's horror, what character do I want to be? How many characters? This is just solid thinking what it can be, and this is the most difficult one, because you're not basing it on anything from experiences or anything like that. You're just basically getting ideas from a blank page, for example. That's the hardest way. Other ways getting ideas is from reading news sources. There's so many news going on every day, whether it's politics, sports, music. Obviously, when there's a popular news about someone being killed, kidnapped, those are good ideas for a thriller or a horror. And then sometimes I get ideas from dreams. I don't know what kind of dreams you have, but sometimes I get some really weird dreams, and you always forget what the dream is when you wake up. So what I do is, in the middle of the night, if I wake up from a good dream, I quickly go to my phone and jot down what this dream was. In the morning, sometimes I read it back and think that that's not going to turn into a film. It just doesn't make sense. But at the time, it makes sense, and sometimes you get from that. Another way to get idea is just researching online, whether it's Google, Reddit. There's so much information out there that you can get ideas from. So let me give you some examples how I get my idea for some of my films. The English Teacher is one of my best short films. If you haven't watched it, it's about a relationship between the English teacher and the student and how they bond between lessons. And then there's a twist where you can see what really happened to the teacher. Now, when I was thinking about this film, I didn't think about, oh, let's create a film with a teacher and a student. My idea was from just one single situation, and that I kind of personally feel is the best way to get an idea. You don't have to think about the whole story. You can just think about one single situation. So for the English teacher, I thought about, I want to make a film that has a good message that sends, where someone does something for that person because he or she felt the need to due to something bad or good happened, whether it's a gift or something. And then I thought, what if this person was giving him more money than he should receive? By the way, this is a spoiler to the film if you haven't watched it, where he was going to get more money what he could receive from an English teacher, and it's because that he killed his wife by accident, but the teacher didn't know that. So they're building that relationship. So then I thought, okay, so this is good. The student wanted to give something to the teacher because he did something bad. And then, oh, all of a sudden, I've got this idea where they can have lessons together. And then we can see the bond between the student and the teacher. And then we give subtle hints that something's happened to the teacher, but we don't tell you what it is. So you see how this expands from a single seed of a situation when someone wants to give something to another person, and it just expands from there. And then there's another example to a more recent short film called The Alice Killings. Now this is more of an anomaly because I was looking for a horror that has a kind of urban legend feel to it. And most urban legends have already been told in movies or books. But I was researching online for murder urban legend, and it came up with this story called The Alice Killings, where it was focused in Japan. Now, I don't think this happened for real, but there was an urban legend where someone killed people, and then this killer placed a playing card with the word Alice written on it, and the murders were really violent. And the killer was never caught, but they couldn't figure out why the killer was doing it with a playing card, etc. And I thought, great, this is a good premise, and I kind of thought ideas of how people were getting killed, why they were getting killed, the history of the killer, all those were just coming from that single source of the urban legend. And sometimes when you watch a lot of films, which I do, and I would recommend you watch a lot of films, because I was surprised where actors, writers, directors haven't seen a lot of films which they should. So watch a lot of films, because sometimes when you watch so many films and you think about what you want to make, your mind kind of subconsciously get ideas from all the films you've watched, and you think it's original, but it's actually a little bit from this film, a little bit from that film. And when you think back, you're like, oh yeah, it was from that film. And sometimes you don't even know which film it's from because you've watched so many. So yeah, I recommend watch a lot of films, read a lot of books. That really helps you generate ideas. Now, once you have an idea, what do? You want to create a full story. You want to create a concept. So this is when kind of brainstorming and concept development takes place. You have this seed of idea, whether it's just a situation, whether it's urban legend, whether you just say, I want to create a message about youth having a hard time studying. I don't know. Once you have that, you want to brainstorm from that. The characters you want to create, how many characters you want, what's the message you want to send, maybe how it ends, but it's not important at this stage exactly what the story is. You just want to brainstorm lots of different things that comes to your head. Like the English teacher, I kind of brainstormed, like, okay, there's a teacher, there's a student, they have lessons, it takes place in the student apartment, and then there's a twist at the end, I don't know what it is. Maybe we show something about the wife that he killed, maybe we show the accident. Anything you want, just write it down, and then you can look at it and then start creating the plot. And when you get towards the end of brainstorming the idea, try to write a log line. Again, this doesn't have to be a complete log line that it's decided on. It's just experimenting at this stage. You can write a log line that summarizes the story, and I suggest you write like between 5 and 10. And once you've written those log lines, you want to read those log lines and think which one attracts you, which one that hooks your audience. And if you can't decide, show it to your friends or family and see which one they like. And then you can work on the one that's best suited to your style or the story you want to tell. So let me give you an example. I want to create a story about a man lost his dog and how he finds the dog at the end. That's my kind of idea. I've brainstormed a little bit, and here's my log lines. Okay, so here are the 5 log lines I've written for this lost dog idea. And these are very different, so let's quickly go through them. The first one is: when a bumbling but lovable dad loses his family's cherished pug at a chaotic street fair, he embarks on a slapstick-filled journey through the quirkiest corners of the city, only to discover the true meaning of companionship and family in his quest to bring the mischievous pooch back home. So that's more like a comedy one. And the next one is: after his loyal dog vanishes into the eerie woods surrounding a small secretive town, a determined but troubled man uncovers hidden truths and supernatural forces, challenges own sanity as he delves deeper into the mystery, leading to a startling reunion and an earthly revelation. This is a little bit more thriller-wise, kind of maybe a little bit horror as well, mystery, detective kind of style. And the third one, this one is: in the wake of a personal tragedy, a reclusive artist loses his only companion, his faithful dog. Through his search across the scenic landscapes of rural America, he encounters diverse souls who restores his faith in humanity, leading to an emotional reunion and a newfound hope. This one I've written more for like a drama piece of story. And the fourth one: a young man and his quirky animated talking dog find themselves separated by magical mishap, leading to an enchanting adventure through lands filled with bizarre creatures and whimsical challenges, redefining their bond and magic of friendship. This one is more like Disney kind of style, adventurous, magical, so fantasy as well, perhaps. And finally, when his prized dog is dog snapped during a high-stake poker game, a slick con artist must race against time, outwit eccentric criminals, and navigate through the underbelly of the city in his roaring classic car, leading to a pulse-pounding showdown and an unexpected bond forged in the face of danger. As you can probably tell, this is very much like a John Wick style. So action, I guess. And once you have written this log line and you've picked, let's say you've picked this one, more kind of Disney adventure fantasy style, you can write a very brief summary what you want to happen in the story. This is not necessary. Like I said before, you only write a summary if it's complicated and something that you need to jot down what happens first, second, third. But as long as you know where it's going, you don't necessarily need a summary. So it's just an optional step here if you want to write a summary. And a summary can be as long as this much or as long as 5-10 pages. It's really up to you. Now, once you've got this idea and logline decided, you want to do your research, whether it's scientific, whether it's about weather, about social, about people relationship, maybe illness. And the research you do is important because then you know everything you want to tell in the story, and you could find weakness that you don't really like or want to talk about. And these days we have the help with AI, so don't be afraid to use AI like ChatGPT to help you do research, and sometimes I actually use it to help me to come up with a better story and things that I didn't think of. And it's a really good tool as long as you don't use it to write it for you, which I don't think is the right way to use AI. You need to use AI for things like research and things that you're not sure about. in terms of the topic that you know the master of. That's where AI comes in, and you can be the master of that and learn from the AI. And once you do your research, you're going to think about the theme and your message, which I'll touch on a bit later in this masterclass. But essentially, you want to think about what kind of message you want to send and what kind of theme of the film is. Is it slow? Is it fast? Is it a thriller? Is it a slow burn? And this is something you kind of have to decide before you write, because it helps you how you write. And I think it's important to decide the genre as well at this stage. But sometimes it's okay. You can write something you think it's a horror, it turns into a thriller. That's kind of close together genres. But you don't want to start with, oh, I don't know what it is. It turns into a horror, then into a comedy, and you end up getting confused and frustrated and don't know how to continue writing. So yeah, decide the theme, the message you want to tell. Finally, before you go further with your idea, maybe just writing a summary what will happen, you also need to decide the feasibility and the scope of your film. You know, independent filmmakers like us, we don't normally have that much budget when we're making, especially our first film. So don't go too crazy making a sci-fi film where you have to get lots of VFX, lots of cool locations, lots of cool lighting, props. You don't have that. But if you have loads of money and loads of locations and unlimited resources, then go ahead and skip this step. But most people will be limited to what they have. So think about that. But if you are someone who just want to go all out and this is your idea, you just want to write without limitations, you can do that. I have done that before, but it just takes a bit longer for the process. You can write without thinking about the limitations. You write it and then you finish it and then you scale it down. You have to go through each scene and see what works with the budget you have, etc., and scale it down. That's another way to do it. Okay, so that's how you generate ideas and develop your concept. Now let's move on to the basic understanding of screenwriting in terms of formatting.
Okay, hope you enjoyed that little clip. So that was just a quick clip to show you what the Screenwriting Masterclass is, in case you're wondering what the heck was why there's two people appearing of the same at the window. But yeah, that was an exclusive preview of the Masterclass Screenwriting. I'm going to go into a bit more and show you another clip on screenwriting before we move on to cinematography. And obviously, if you want to access the entire filmmaking class, which includes color grading, editing as well, have a look at the link in the description below. So what did you think of that, guys? Did you understand how I generate my ideas? Let me know in the comment section if you got any questions on ideas that you may have and you're stuck on, or something that you worked on and it's nearly there, but just there's that one last hurdle you need. Let me know in the comments and I'll try to see if I can help you. But otherwise, yeah, generating ideas is really important at the beginning. Once you have this idea, you can just go full on, and it's so much smoother when the idea is ironed out properly. And obviously for independent filmmakers like us, we've got to also think about budget, which I'll talk about as well a little bit in the masterclass, especially on locations. You know, we don't have big budgets, so when you write and think about the idea, think about what budget you have. Yeah, if you have a large budget, then go wild a little bit. Maybe alien spaceship, or whatever you have. But if your budget is very limited, which I'm assuming applies to most of you, then perhaps you got to think about filming in your home, like here, or in your friend's house, or outdoor in a field. So that's important. But don't worry about the location when you think about the idea. The location is just a part of a little bit of a character in the story. What's important is your story, what message it sends. A good story can happen in multiple locations. It doesn't have to be fancy. So think about that. Let's move on to the next exclusive clip and we'll see what you learn from that. That will be, Thomas says, I generate ideas in a similar way. That's good. You're on the right track, Thomas. Next bit is, if you already know this, maybe just a refresh if you do. It's about the basic knowledge you need to know when you're writing the screenplay, such as formatting and things like that. So let's take a look at that.
Now let's talk about how you write and format your screenwriting. Like I said before, this is a quick section about the basic knowledge you should have. I want to concentrate more about the style of how I write and develop stories, etc. So let's jump on the software I use for writing my script. Now I've seen many beginning writers, they start writing their script on a Word or notes. I mean, it's good for doing kind of basic writing or just jotting down your ideas and writing a summary. It doesn't have the formatting that you need for someone to read it and for you to read it scene by scene and dialogue by dialogue. I mean, you could format it how you should be formatted, but it would just take those extra times of formatting each line. And you should always start with a software that's made for screenwriting. So the software I use is called Celtex, which I'll show you in a bit. But there's so many others out there. You don't have to use this one. There's some free ones, there's some paid ones. They're cheap, expensive. You need to find the one that suits your best needs and your budget. Okay, so let's quickly go through the formatting.
This is inside Celtex, which you can check out yourself. Like I said, you can use any software, but make sure it's dedicated for screenwriting. Now, the first page, you write your title. I have here Crowned in Shadows. This is one of my recent short films. And bracket after that is how many revisions I've had. It's good when you're sending it to other people to read. And without this version, they might get confused which version is latest. So this kind of indicates which version it is by your name. Based on, doesn't really matter. I'll usually just fill those 3 lines. And then you start writing. Oh, by the way, you can write copyright and contact details if you want to make it official. But for short films, I don't normally do that. So let's talk about the scene starts, what it is in terms of location and time. So the scene here is either interior or, let's have a look. Have we got exterior in this film? Oh, actually, we haven't got an exterior in this film. But if it's exterior, you would write EXT, exterior. And then the next stage here is the location. This could be anything this story sets in. In this one, it's the Miss Universe pageant stage. Next one, interior, it could be Amelia's luxury apartment, the kitchen. So you get the idea. Wherever it is, write that location. And then it's time. Is it day or night? You need to write that so when people shoot the film, they can organize by day or night. And then if there's a flashback of the scene, it's just good to reference it. This is a flashback. If you go back to present, it's present. And sometimes when there's a from a scene to scene, for example, you can see here that's night, that's day. This means it's a very different scene. It's another day. Sometimes if it's a continuous, you'll see it's continuous scene. So let's find an example for that. Here's an example where interior is Amelia's bedroom. You write what happens, and then the next scene is actually continuous from previous scene. That means it's almost in real time. There's no time difference. Sometimes if there's time difference that's slightly more than continuous, you replace this with things like moments later, or you could put things next day or a few days later, wherever you want to indicate. And this helps, again, for people to shoot. It would know how to decorate the scene. If it's a completely different day, they need to change the set design, etc. Once you have set the scene, next is you writing either a dialogue or a stage direction, which describes the place, describes a person, what they're doing. It's almost like a novel, but with screenwriting, it's not as complicated as a novel. You just need to write exactly what it looks like, how it feels, maybe a little bit. But, with novel, you have to write really nice words, complicated words, that flows, that reads nicely and engages people when they read it. But with screenwriting, the purpose of this is to set the stage, what it is, what's that person doing, and that's all you need. So when you write something with a person that's showing for the first time, make sure they're in capitals. I don't do that all the time. You can see here, I'm just being lazy, but it's good to see capitals so people can read through and see the person's name quite easily. And if it's the first time, you put their age, you describe what they look like. Again, this is not necessary to go into details, but some writers like to. It's entirely up to you. All I do for me is the name, the age, what they look like, and that's it. That's basically the stage direction, what happens, etc. And then if you go into dialogue, you write the name, obviously in capitals, or kind of software will capitalize this for you, so you don't need to do it. Just make sure you learn how to use the dialogue function. For example, here there's like a shortcut, or sometimes when you go like enter, it goes straight into the next dialogue. You write the name of the person, and you enter again. It goes straight to what they talk about, say something, and then if it's not a dialogue, sometimes you can go to stage direction. You just need to know all the shortcuts, etc. So dialogue is easy. You write what they want to say, and then sometimes if it's a continuous dialogue from previous of the same person, you write continue as abbreviated here. Now there are occasions, again this is optional, where you want to express how they say those lines, their feelings. It is good for the actors to know, but good actors can kind of adapt and find out themselves. So let me find an example here. Here you go. Amelia, slightly smiling. I thought that was important to pick up her emotion a little bit. Sometimes you do need that direction. But again, it's optional, but it's more recommended than not having those kind of emotions attached. You write this right beneath the name as if it's part of the dialogue, but put it in brackets how they're feeling, or maybe what they're doing, or slightly tilting their head or raising one leg. I don't know. Just something that helps the actor to know, okay, so that's what the person is doing or feeling. Another thing I want to show you is, when the film begins and there's like a message or a subtitle, or like, for example, in this film here, title 4 Days Since Invasion. So this is what you write. You write title and in bold 4 Days Since Invasion, or whatever message you want to put, like present day or 1920. There's also this thing called intercut between characters or locations. This is when you see a film where there's a scene switch between, I don't know, if there's a fight happening and there's a scene switch between one character fighting another character in one location, and it switch another scene, and another character fighting another character, and switch back to the original one. So when you switch this back and forth, especially it happens so many times, you don't want to keep writing scene titles like here. So because then there will be so many. If you switch 10 times, you'll see so many scene titles 10 times. You don't need that, because it can be shot continuously, and when people, producers, etc., reading it will understand that, okay, that's just when the film's being edited, it will be switched between scenes. How you do is you put intercut between, you put the character names or locations, wherever makes more sense. Here I've put C600 as the character name, Mr. X, Alina, Anna, and Logan. And then after that, I've just put all interviewing their copies. This is just for reference. You don't need that. So underneath that, you put Logan, and then you put dialogue, and then it's another Logan, and then you put human. So you can see every time there's a dialogue, all these people are in different locations. So the producer, the set designer, etc., they know, okay, so every time there's a new person, it's a different location. And then that's when you switch different scenes without the scene heading. And this keeps going until you see a new scene heading. That's when the intercut stops.
Okay, that was just the basic going through of formatting a screenplay. There are other tutorials or knowledge you can search online if you want to go really advanced. But I think this is all you need to start writing a full script. So now we're going to move on to the most important part of this masterclass, which is how to craft a compelling plot.
All right. that's the end of the screenwriting preview, guys. So if you really enjoyed that, like I said, I'll put a link in the description below for you to access the entire screenwriting class, as well as the other classes. But I hope you've learned something from that. At least you understood the basic knowledge of how to edit a script properly, so that it's like a universal language that everybody, when they read the script, they will understand, from a producer to a cinematographer to makeup artist. And it's really important you learn that. That's a basic knowledge you need. I get people who start writing script just on Word and just like a normal essay. That's not how you write script. And you can't. When I read those, it's really difficult to read. If it reads like a novel, but it's not a novel. So write script properly and generate ideas from different sources, like I mentioned before. And then in the rest of the masterclass in screenwriting, I talk about how to structure your story, how to create characters that give you memorable characters, how to write the script and polish it and then rewrite it, and what to do afterwards. And I'll give you an example of my script and go through all the full breakdown. So there's like about 2-3 hours of content for you to really dig in and learn the way I write my films. So, any questions? Batchun says VFX, but sorry, I don't know. I don't do VFX, so not sure which videos you saw I do VFX. Let me know if you have any questions, and then in a bit we're gonna move on to cinematography, which it's a popular topic where people talk about equipment, especially camera equipment. I want to show you the video in a bit from the masterclass of cinematography, where we talk about cameras, what camera you should get, you shouldn't get. And yeah, every day, almost every day on Instagram, on TikTok, people ask me like, hey, what's the best camera you recommend? Is it this camera? Is it that camera? I don't know why. I don't know why people obsess about cameras. If you go through my whole cinematography masterclass, you'll know that it's not just about cameras. It's about the story. It's about the lighting. It's about sound. It's about everything. Camera is probably the least important thing in the whole filmmaking process. Don't forget, for those of you just joined, there's a special surprise at the end of this live stream, which I'm sure everybody will love. So, if there's no more questions, thanks for staying through so far. We're about halfway there. So I'm going to show you me talking about the camera equipment from my cinematography masterclass. The type of equipment you need, you want, you have, that's probably the most popular topic to talk about in cinematography. For now, we'll talk about the camera, and then we'll move on lenses, and later we'll discuss about lighting. Cameras. I've had a share few of cameras in my 5 to 6 years of shooting films, and I don't want you to make the same mistake as me. It's not about the best camera, the best functions. Of course, some functions is nice to have, but you're watching this and I'm assuming you're probably just starting out, haven't started, or just on your way getting advanced. So when you're at the beginning stage, you're still figuring out who you are as a cinematographer. What is your style and what you like to shoot in terms of light, dark, high, low. There's so many elements you need to think about when you're shooting, and you don't want to put that on top of what camera you need and what type of camera and how much the camera is and all the bits you need to add on top of the camera. So going back to the very start, I had a Canon 5D Mark IV, and that was a good camera, but a little bit more too advanced for a beginner. I wish I had something simpler so I can concentrate on the framing, the lighting, and just directing actors. And I stayed with Canon for quite a bit, with different type of Canon cameras, and I just didn't enjoy the science color from that. And I thought it's a camera. So in the end, my dream was to get a red camera. That would be the holy grail, you know, wow. That would be the end, I think. And then eventually I got the red camera. I had it for about a year. I shot a few films on it, short as well as a feature. You know what? The camera was good. It was a lot better than the Canon. The color science was a lot better, but it was heavy. It was bulky. It wasn't easy to move around. It wasn't easy to carry. It needed a lot of attachments just to make it work on a gimbal. Oh boy. And it started to break down. Madia, good question. Let's just pause this for a second. I don't want to go into deep and go back to screenwriting. So Madia is asking how to keep a balance of including details that are usually seen in novels that the writer sees as important. For example, body language, emotions, and wants to include and stick into how scripts are written. Very good. So you do that in italics. That's what we normally do. For example, I do that like a sound effects or a movement, and I put them sometimes in bold, depending how much emphasis you want to put on those emotions and stuff. But what's common though in script, I'm not sure I mentioned in that video you just saw, is that you write someone during a dialogue. If someone's saying the dialogue in a way that it was supposed to be said, like he's saying in a way that he's really out of breath because he's been running like this, so you could put the person's name and then before the line starts you put brackets out of breath. So that's like an emotion, kind of body language during the dialogue scenes. But outside the dialogue, yeah, you can write as much as you want, but just think about when you're writing. It's not a novel, so you don't have to write beautiful words. Some people do. You know, I know famous director Tarantino writes really beautifully, but you don't overwrite because the information all they need is a location, where, what they're doing, maybe a little bit how they're feeling, and their body language a little bit, and that's it. Anything more, especially how they're feeling, too much, you're giving the actor no freedom. Do you understand? You know, if the story is good, the actor will pick up the feelings with little hints. So hopefully that answers your question. We'll continue this cinematography camera equipment talk a little bit, and it just takes so long to boot up, you know, and I ended up not enjoying using it, even though everything that it produces was amazing. So I went back to a smaller camera, a Fuji TX3, and then after that I got stuck with Blackmagic, and that was probably the best camera I ever had. It was not too big, not too small. It had all the functions I need. And I had that for a good 3 years before I moved on to the DJI camera, which is what I'm using right now. So my point of this is get a camera that serves your needs. You know, you don't have to go crazy. If you have a lot of money, you can be a little bit more flexible of what you want to get. But majority of people probably don't have that kind of budget. I've said this before and I'm going to say it again and again. If you're a beginner filmmaker, the best camera is your smartphone. I didn't have that option when I started, but nowadays, especially the iPhone 15 Pro Max, depending on when you're watching this, a year from now, 2 years from now, you're going to get even better smartphones. You don't have to get the Apple if you can't afford it. There's Samsung, there's other Android phones that's just equally, if not better. But if you really want to know what type of camera is best for cinematography, there's no definitive answer. It depends when you're asking. Like I said, right now I'm using DJI Ronin 4D. A year ago I was using Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro. You know, for me, I wanted to have ND. That's very important. We'll talk about that as well. ND is something you need so that you can shoot in harsh sunlight when it's outdoor or bright scenes. I don't want it to be screwing things onto a lens and buy different filters, step up rings. I don't need all that. I just want to be able to press a button and have ND. That's my number one priority on any camera. And Blackmagic had that. And then I personally love my gimbal shots. So I want something that I'm able to move from static shots on the stick to a gimbal, and Blackmagic was okay. You know, I had everything rigged up on the gimbal that's ready to go, so that all I have to do is take it off the tripod, put it on the gimbal. It takes about 10 minutes to set up, and it's ready to go. But it had its flaws. The battery had to be kept charging every 40 minutes. You need another battery for the gimbal, and you need another battery for the LiDAR system, and you need another battery for the monitor, and you need another battery. It just became too much for me to do all that to set up. And then I normally shoot with minimal crew. Most of the time it's just me, and I wanted to be able to set things up pretty quickly. Even if you have people helping you, you still got to tell them what to do, and I want it this way and that way. There might be problems. The battery doesn't work. Oh, that lens isn't working. Oh, the camera isn't quite right for this type of adapter. You know, there's all type of problems. And DJI rolling 4D camera is the solution to all of my problems I just said. But like I said, every camera's got pros and cons. With this camera, I'm limited to lenses I can use because of how the gimbal works on this camera. And also in post-production, it can only shoot ProRes RAW, which means I can't edit DaVinci Resolve unless I convert it into CD&G. All those little things. And I was weighing the pros and cons, and it was worth the sacrifice. So, you know, I'm telling you this to let you know that there is no perfect camera out there. You want a camera that serves your needs, that solves most of your problems. It's not going to solve everything. But if you're happy it's solved most of your problems, whether it's lightweight, whether it's ND, whether it's compatibility to other things you're using, you know, what's important to you, and think about from that side. If you don't care about lenses, you don't care about all those gimbal shots, you just want to get into the cinematography and just concentrate on the framing, and like I said, get a smartphone. That's all you need. I swear, if you can shoot a good film, I've shot like what, five short films with my smartphone. If you can make a good film with your smartphone, and then when you switch to any other camera, you're going to be a pro. You know, you'll know exactly how to frame. It'll take you just a little bit of time to get used to lenses and focusing and etc. But because you have that foundation, you're going to learn so much quicker, and you're going to improve so much better as well. All right, so that's the first clip from the masterclass in cinematography. As usual, please let me know if you've got any questions, guys. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I know I didn't give you the exact answer. Even if I could recommend a camera for you, it'd be outdated in 12 months, 24 months. And it would only suit my needs. It wouldn't suit your needs. Everybody's different. You got to understand what your needs are. And you don't know your needs straight away. That's why I say use what you have at hand. It's free. You've already paid for it, you know. Find out your needs from that camera, and then spend the right money for the right camera. So that's about cameras, guys. Let me know in the comments what camera you have, what you're hoping to get, maybe, and what you regret that you got in the past, like I have. Be interesting to know. But otherwise, I hope you're enjoying this live masterclass so far. I've tried to answer as much questions as I can, but there haven't been that many comments coming through yet. But we've got one more video, and this time it's from the masterclass of cinematography again, but we're going to talk about depth. It's another popular topic where people love creating depth in cinematography, where it's a foreground, midground, or background. I'll talk about all of that. And then after that clip, I'm going to give you a surprise, as I promised. So, are you ready for the final clip? Oh, by the way, yeah, so the full masterclass in cinematography you can access with the link below. Do check out if you're interested. I'll talk about more about it after this clip. So let's play that. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking creating depth is the blurred background, the blurrer, the better in terms of more cinematic. I mean, yeah, you're kind of right. But I put this inside the framing section because framing is also part of the foreground, the midground, and the background, you know? So if you use a focal lens like 50mm and you have f-stop between 1.4 or 2, the background is going to be very blurred. That means if it's fully open, you won't be able to see clearly what's in the background. So you got to decide, do you have it fully open or you want to show a little bit background. That's kind of framing. Same as if something is in the foreground, how much detail do you want them to see? You know, you got to think about that in terms of set design, props, and also the positioning as well. I talked about earlier framing when you have one person right at the edge like this. What things would you put here? So again, it's about the story. It's about how much detail you want it to see. You don't want to put something that's too distracting unless that's how that character is. You know, if that character is crazy or he's kind of not quite stable, maybe you want to put something a little bit distracting. But you know, this is all my kind of style, and it's not right or wrong. It's just something you got to think about when you do your framing. Everything in the framing has to have a purpose. It's like my screenwriting class that I did. Everything you write has a reason, has a payoff. So, you know, you can't have just a normal picture in the frame that has, I don't know, a tree, unless that means something, you know. You can't have the color green curtain in the frame unless that green curtain means something. So it takes a long time for you to plan those shots, to think about framing. And sometimes I get it, for me as well, independent filmmaking, we don't have the luxury of time and think about placing this, place that. You know, that takes up so much time and thinking. So in those incidences, you just got to do your best in terms of framing, what's important, how it makes the character feel to the audience, how it looks cinematic. And maybe you don't want it to look cinematic. You want to look a little bit odd. You want to make it look a feeling that makes the viewer feel a little bit off. That's a style as well. So if you don't have time, you can always plan shots the night before or storyboard, which we'll talk about that towards the end of this masterclass. So while we're on the subject of creating depth, let's talk about the technical side of the depth of field, how you create that on the lens.
There are two ways to change your depth of field. One is like I showed you in the camera settings video earlier. You can do it in some cameras by changing the iris, and you can select the different f-stops if it's a photography lens. And the other way is manually doing on the barrel, mostly on cine lenses, where you can select your f-stop or your t-stop. Now let's talk about this graph I've drawn. Picture this. When you look through your camera, not everything you see will be in sharp focus. Some parts will be crystal clear, while others might appear a little bit blurry. And this blurriness is depth of field. Now, see this line with dots here on the left? Each stop represents a different setting on your camera lens, the f-stop or t-stop number. These numbers can feel a little bit like a secret code at first, but they actually are quite simple once you get to know them. They control how wide open your lens is. Lower numbers means the lens is wide open, letting a lot of light. This creates what we call a shallow depth of field. It's like when you take a portrait and the person's face perfectly sharp, but the background is dreamy blur. That's our blue patch right here. It makes your subject stand out beautifully. And as we move to higher numbers, the lens opening gets smaller, reducing the light, but bringing more of your scene into focus. This is what we call a deep depth of field. Imagine you're capturing a landscape and you want every detail from flowers right in front of you to the mountains in the distance to be all sharp. And that's what our red patch is showing. And in the middle, there's a balance, a moderate depth of field. It's like a group shot where you want all your friends to be clear, but the background can be a little bit soft, and that's our green patch. So by adjusting the f-stop or t-stop on your lens, you decide how much of your shot is in focus. It's like painting with light and blur, creating different moods and directing your audience attention exactly where you want it.
Now we're at the end of the framing section. Hopefully you've learned the basic lighting, the basic framing. With this knowledge already, you can make a film. Seriously, you can go away and stop this course, make a film, but wait, there's obviously a lot more for you to learn. But what I'm trying to say is, you know, cinematography can get as simple as you want and can get as deep as you want. And I'm still learning after so many years. Now, like I said before, you're going to think about the lighting, the props, if there's any movement in the background, all these kind of things that helps you to create that nice frame, the composition of the entire scene. I would suggest go practice with your friends, or if you haven't got any friends like me, do it by yourself. It's fine, you know, nobody knows. Who cares? Once you're comfortable with that, we're gonna move on to something more exciting, is camera movement. But you know, when you're doing the camera movement, you gotta be really know exactly about how lighting works, because lighting is going to change when you move the camera, and framing is going to change when you move the camera. Practice those framing and lighting before we move on to the next section. I'm going to give you some assignments now to see if you really understand what you've learned, and then we'll move on to the camera movements. Okay, that's the end of the cinematography section, guys. Hope you've learned a little bit about lens, how they work in terms to create depth, and what it means to create the depth in the frame. Obviously, that was in the middle of the framing section of the Cinematography Masterclass. So before that, I'll talk about different type of framing you can do, and after that, we're going to movements, etc. So I hope you've enjoyed this so far, this live stream about Filmmaking Masterclass. You can access the Masterclass through the link in the description below. But you know, before I go, while I'm talking about the surprise I told you at the end, do let me know if there's any questions you want to ask about the masterclass itself. There's also color grading, editing, directing coming up as well. But those are the two so far available. You can pre-order the others at a cheaper price. But yeah, let me know if you've got any questions. I'll try to answer as much as I can. But the surprise is, anyone who's watched this stream or this video will get this free book when they enroll into my Filmmaking Masterclass. This book I wrote last year, actually, so it's still quite new. It's about how I made all those films in 3 years, and they talk about my struggles. There's also pictures inside, if you need pictures. I talk about struggles, my mistakes, my success, how I fund my film, how to get funding for your films, etc. So lots of good information, and I'll give you a free copy if you enroll just by sending me a DM on any of the social media or give me a comment below. And also there's lots of free gifts, filmmaking equipment like this microphone, this light, also giving away this light. So there's lots of prizes to win as well by watching this video that I will send out to 6 lucky winners. And there's one more thing. There's one more surprise. Maybe you didn't know. But this whole masterclass I'm doing has a community which is inside once you become a student of any class. Inside the community, I'll be there to help you to look at your assignments even more, to help you along the way of your own films if you need help, as well as live coaching sessions like this, but private with my students only. And that is a lifetime access for now. Soon, it'll be a subscription, but anyone get that before the subscription, they get a lifetime access. You can get me for life until I die, which hopefully will be a long time. So that's it, guys. Thank you, Booty, for the comment. And yeah, thank you for watching, and hope you see you in the community and enjoy the masterclass. Thanks, everyone.